Welcome back, sleepyheads. See, you've eased your way into another late night corner of history. Before Silas steps into the hillside glow, a word from the voice behind the clock. You know, the one who sets the pace, then lets the night do the talking. Rocinha, 2012. A moment suspended between fear and possibility. The era of pacification, when uniforms replaced gunfire, when calm arrived not loudly, but carefully. Blue lights on concrete walls, narrow paths, learning how to breathe again. It's the perfect place for a quiet walk. Not because danger vanished, but because tension softened into listening. Feel like your history slow, human, and close enough to feel the pulse. Stay with us. Join the sleepy circle. Let's begin.
Chapter 1, The Hill That Hums Before Dawn. Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your soft-spoken trespasser in time, here to tuck you in with the kind of bedtime stories that require legal disclaimers. If my voice helps you drift through history's more enthusiastic chapters, tap like, subscribe, ring the bell, perform the sacred algorithm dance. Tell me where you're listening from, and I promise I won't stalk you, unless you're a helicopter hovering over Rocinha at 4 a.m. In that case, I'm directly beneath you, filming with airplane mode on like a responsible adult. Now, breathe. In through the nose, out through the doubt. We're heading down the hillside where Rio's postcard smile forgets to look, into a favela that learned to make light from darkness and rent courage by the hour. The year is 2012. People say pacification like it's a gentle herbal tea. Up here, it tastes like diesel and comes served with boots. Estrada de Gavia. Overlook, the city that forgot to sleep. The hill is humming before dawn, low, insectile, like a power line deciding whether to forgive you. At the Estrada de Gavia overlook, Rio spreads below me in impossible geometry. Black water stitched with sodium amber. Tunnels exhaling cars. The Christ statue a pale rumor against the sky. I can almost pretend the city is resting. Then a helicopter scythes across the dark, and the pretense dies of embarrassment. Blue lights begin to comb the hillside, slow sweeps that slice through the stacked cinder block and tile, painting every corrugation of roof and hope. They rake over water tanks like domed moons, and snag in laundry strung like surrender flags. Voices rise, then clip themselves short, then rise again. Somewhere a dog informs the cosmos he is not okay with any of this. A second helicopter joins the first. They circle, shoulder to shoulder, rotors cutting the air into obedient squares. If peace had a sound, I mutter, watching their cones of light pace each other, it'd be rotor blades pretending to be angels. The hillside answers with the metallic cough of a generator and the panicked thrum of a moto that can't decide whether to flee or flirt. Below me, Rocinha piles upward in angles that would make a city engineer cry into his blueprints. Alleys split, then narrow, then reappear like guilty thoughts. The houses are pressed so tight together that none of them can tell whose breath is whose. The whole place looks like it was poured in a hurry and set on a slope for fun. I've seen cathedrals that felt less sacred. A gust comes up from the sea and licks the sweat off my neck. I taste salt, diesel, and something electrical. Not quite ozone, more like the mood before an argument. The first convoy grinds into view far below. Armored trucks climbing the snake of road, each one blinking that blue eye the way sharks blink when they're considering the menu. Sirens don't wail, they assert. This is not an arrival, it's a decision. Someone behind me lights a cigarette. The ember paints his cheekbones a brief volcanic orange. Vidar rum, he says softly. This is gonna go bad. We both know that bad is a spectrum, and tonight owns the paint swatches. He flicks ash into the darkness. Down the hill, a window slams like a book closing on a chapter nobody wanted to read. A woman in a pink bathrobe steps onto her roof, 2 houses down, hair in a bun stabbed with a pen. She looks up at the helicopters and lifts her coffee cup like a toast. Then she drinks, turns, and shouts something I don't catch to the room behind her. A kid appears, clutching a soccer ball like a talisman. He stares at the lights with the expression of someone who has learned what important looks like and is trying to decide if he should be impressed or afraid. Freedom never arrives quietly, I say under my breath. More to my boots than to the night. It clears its throat with sirens. The moto-taxi station, the rumor mill on two wheels. I follow the slope down, letting the overlooks slip behind me, the road curving in tight parentheses around the hill. The air warms by degrees. The city's breeze loses its manners as we enter the body heat of Rocinha proper. Neon signs nap with one eye open. A chorus of parrots argues physics in someone's fig tree. I pick my steps around a pothole that could swallow opinions. The blue lights sweep again. Long stroke, a blink, a pause. My shadow arrives and leaves before I do. The moto-taxi station is already awake, which is to say, it didn't sleep. A line of bikes slouches under an awning, exhaust burbling, rearview mirrors catching those helicopter glints and fracturing them into too many eyes. Jackets hang from nails like molted skins. Someone has taped a handwritten sign to the pole. Ta faltando traco, short on change, which is funnier than it means to be given the circumstances. Men talk in that essential half-whisper, the one that carries farther. Then shouting. I take my place beside a concrete post, painted the color of forgiveness. The floor is a mosaic of oil and footnotes. A radio on the counter is tuned to news that won't call anything what it is. The anchor uses words like operation and stabilization, rolling them around his tongue, as if syllables were a bulletproof vest. The woman working the counter, hair tied in a scarf, wrists jangling with bracelets that sound like a pocket full of keys, counts fares into a drawer and doesn't bother to close it. Her calm is the loudest thing here. A girl of 12 sits on a milk crate behind her, plucking the loose threads from a soccer jersey with surgical precision. A boy sleeps under the bench with a helmet for a pillow. Everyone wears a second expression, a private one they don't let you see for long. What do you hear? A writer asks a writer. That they're taking the top first. Always take the high ground, unless you live there. A man, with a scar down one cheek, smokes like he owes the cigarette money. A pacification, he says, and the word twists itself into something that smells like burned sugar. Sweet, bitter, sticky. Who disappears first? Another asks, and they all study the floor as if the tiles will volunteer. The woman at the counter stamps a flimsy receipt with a thunk that feels ceremonial. She looks up at me as if I'm a translation she doesn't quite trust. Her mouth smiles. Her eyes do the math of exits. Você é da televisão? She asks. Are you from TV? I tell her I'm from nowhere people like to visit. She snorts. Então seja rápido. Then be quick. Engines cough to life and cut themselves off again like anxious coughers at a funeral. A motorcyclist with a child's sticker of a superhero on his helmet leans toward me, visor up, eyes clear. The blue ones don't knock, he says in English. He has polished on tourists and TV. He doesn't blink while he says it. I nod. Wants to say, I heard him in the place it matters. A siren chirps short as a laugh. For a moment, the entire station flinches in the same direction. A flock of starlings switching sky. Then stillness again. Someone drops a socket wrench, and the clatter ricochets down the alley and refuses to come back. A man with a neck tattoo of Our Lady of Aparecida kisses 2 fingers and touches her face there. His hand shakes after. We are a dozen hearts waiting for the same beat. Above us, a helicopter swings low, close enough to make the awning tremble like skin under a cold breath. The rotor wash catches a string of paper flags and lifts them one after the other into a little wave, as if the neighborhood has decided, for the sake of comedy, to salute. A scrap of blue tarp peels up and slaps itself down again. The smell of hot plastic sidles in and sits on my tongue. It tastes like the end of patience. On the hill road, the first BOPE truck appears, massive, black, its windows refusing to be windows. The grill is a sneer. The tires carry silence the way a courthouse carries judgment. It takes the corner slow enough to let everyone see the choice they have. Door or wall, voice or breath. A second truck follows, then a third, the convoy chewing the incline like a bored god. The woman behind the counter's bracelets stop their tiny music. The girl on the milk crate finally breaks a thread that's been refusing to surrender. She holds the loose end like a fishtail and grins despite herself. A dog sighs under the bench and abandons sleep as unworkable. He sits up and considers the situation with the long-suffering eyes of a creature who has watched humans make choices before. The man with the scar stubs his cigarette on his boot heel, then changes his mind and lifts it to his lips again. A small mercy for his nerves. Kim vai sumir, he repeats more softly. Who will vanish? And the question lands among us like a feather that somehow weighs a kilogram. I step off the curb and drift with the edge of a little crowd as it forms. 3 motos rolling slow. 2 pedestrians who are absolutely not following anyone. A kid in flip-flops who dribbles his soccer ball along the seam of the sidewalk because muscle memory is the one law that never gets repealed. The convoy eases past a mural of a laughing woman with a halo of hibiscus. Someone has spray-painted Paz com respeto over her shoulder, peace with respect. The fresh white letters look like the kind of promise that hates mirrors. Hope looks surprisingly like bureaucracy, I say to myself, watching a soldier in the front cab check a clipboard while the driver adjusts a side mirror to study his own jawline. The clipboard lists streets that are not streets and house numbers that are more of a suggestion than a fact. A paper map tries to hold a living organism still, and the organism laughs politely and keeps breathing. We pass a door with 3 locks and no doorknob. A woman pulls her child back from the threshold with 2 fingers and a whisper. A teenager in a flamingo jersey stands on a step and records on his phone, arm raised, face set to the expression every teenager in the world wears when history wanders past. Half awe, half, I told you. The blue lights smear themselves along his forearm like war paint. I tuck into the mouth of a narrow alley and let the convoy climb without me. The alley breathes laundry, fry oil, and the sour ghost of cachaça. Somewhere above, a TV laughs, audience sweetened, jokes unbothered by context. A man brushes his teeth over a plastic bucket and spits carefully as if the water is a witness. He glances at the sky, at the trucks, at me, and shrugs with one eyebrow in a dialect older than language. What do you want me to do? Stop brushing. Some cities are built on stone, I whisper to the damp air, to the stacked bricks, to the thin cascade of light falling through the wiring like confetti that lost faith. Rocinha is built on improvisation and physics that mind their own business. The hillside answers with another rotor shout and a volley of radios clearing throats simultaneously. The moto-taxi station recedes behind us, its nervous engines now a purr turned prayer. The woman at the counter shakes her bracelets back into music and starts counting again. She hasn't closed the drawer. She doesn't plan to. It's not trust, it's defiance. That drawer will close when she says, not when any siren tells it to. Civilization is made of tiny decisions repeated until someone else has to use your rules. I feel the hill tilt under my boots, the way a ship tilts under new wind. Cities hold their breath before they change, I murmur, stepping back into the road as the third truck crawls by. The way the sea goes still before a storm. The driver looks straight ahead, jaw set, eyes hidden behind glass that makes him into an instrument instead of a man. For a second, just a second, he glances at the child with the soccer ball. Something human flares, then shudders. The truck climbs. Behind us, the overlook is just a brighter patch of darkness. Ahead, the street kinks left, then right, then has second thoughts entirely. The helicopters turn their circles like tired saints with neon halos. A stray firework cracks somewhere uphill. Late, misfired, or stubbornly festive. It pops open a flower of green that startles the blue sweep and makes the whole block gasp. Someone laughs. The sound is close to crying and has every reason to be. Welcome to pacification, I say, mostly for the recording, mostly for you. We'll see what gets pacified, the guns, the people, or the rumor that either can be kept quiet. Stay close. Let your shoulders loosen without lowering your guard. We'll keep walking the scene where policy meets pulse, where clipboards meet doorways, where the word peace tries to fit inside walls that already learned the shape of war. If you're still with me, breathe. Slow in, slower out. The hill is humming. Dawn is late on purpose. And all that blue. It's just night resisting surrender. Chapter 2. The Market. That forgot to blink Largo del Boyadero sits on the hillside like a confessional with too many secrets and not enough priests. The smell is a quilt, grilled beef fat, diesel, whetstone, green papaya, a distant thread of bleach from someone's last-minute scrubbing spree. Vendors have set their smiles to festival, the kind you staple on and pray won't fall off in the humidity. A soccer match flickers on a battered TV, lashed to a pole with electric tape and optimism. A newscaster mouths "Cooperación," while the captions brag that everything is perfectly under control. The subtitles might as well be written on the wind. A boy dances between stalls with sparklers. A woman flips Espatino with a rhythm that sounds like hope refusing medication. A man in a flamingo jersey hawks knockoff ANC. No, wait. UPP caps. Blue thread against midnight cloth, as if you could stitch peace into a brim. I pass a plastic table where two grandmothers slap, dominoes hard enough to send quick Morse code into the wood. We've outlived worse. Then the fireworks start. A brief sky of cheap stars blooms above the market, and everyone cheers. Too bright, too early, too eager. And a second later, the sky answers with a different sound. Not crackle, not cheer. A surgical, ugly punctuation, short controlled bursts that don't waste syllables. The cheering stops as if someone unplugged the neighborhood. People know which direction danger speaks from. Heads tilt. The boy with the sparkler freezes, the spark giving him a tiny crown before it dies. Somewhere to my right, beyond the sugarcane press, past the TV that insists on smiling, metal hugs metal, and the hillside changes its mind about being festive. I'm in the open, idiot that I am. When the first round hammers the market's tin lip, instinct moves faster than wit. I drop behind a crate of oranges, the fruit stacked in cheerful geometry, and turn small, the way prey learns to summarize. Itself. The air changes temperature. Panic always brings its own weather. A second burst stutters. Something chips the curb beside my shoe and spits grit into my ankle. The crate shivers. An orange explodes, misting me in juice like the sun losing an argument. Someone yanks my collar. Abaixo, cara. Vem. His breath is cachaça and urgency. We tumble behind a tilted freezer that hums its useless lullaby. Another burst slaps the metal with flat knuckles. I taste copper that doesn't belong to me. My hands decide to tremble. I let them. No point in arguing with hands now. A woman screams once, the clean, involuntary kind, and clamps it down to a hiss because sound makes you large. The market learns to move without running. Mothers fold children into the architecture. Men become walls. Stalls become fortresses. The TV keeps playing on mute, a cheerful ghost in the corner of my eye. I press my cheek against cold tile and realize I'm grinning like an idiot, because sometimes terror just looks like joy in a broken mirror. The shots pause, reload, reconsider. For 3 breaths, the hillside remembers the word normal. Then the hillside forgets again. We crab crawl between a table of cilantro and a bucket of ice, melting into a small, brave ocean. My helper, the collar yanker, nods toward a gap no wider than a confession. Rua he rasps. Vai. His eyes are the color of decision. I squeeze his shoulder because language is heavy and we don't have the luggage. On the way past the oranges, I steal a look at the hole the bullet chewed through the fruit. Bright pulp, rind peeled back like a grin that lost its nerve. Somewhere in my mouth, a sentence assembles itself and jumps out before I can edit it. They called it peace on paper. In the margins, it bled. The irony lands like a stone in my own stomach. I am suddenly in love with all unshot versions of myself. We slide into the artery called Rua 1, a narrow seam stitched with cables and caution. The market's clatter is muffled here, as if swallowed by wet brick. Blue light begins to wash over the alley in slow, repeating tides. Bope's signature shade, the color you paint onto air when you intend to rearrange a neighborhood. It turns the walls to aquariums of ghosts. Paz con respeto. Someone has painted large and fresh across a cinder block wall. The paint is still tacky. The respect is not. Boots, far off. Radios, closer. A helicopter scissoring the night into thinner slices. Metal gates rattle as soldiers test the vocabulary of the block. Knock, pause, knock again. Behind one gate, a child's sob leaks out like steam, a sound trying to become invisible before it's heard. My mouth goes very dry. I remind myself, a tourist in catastrophe with a return ticket. The people next to me live on the runway. The smell here is rain-braided with gun oil and hot rubber. Water snakes down the slope, searching ankles, flooding a pothole that pretends to be a summer lake long enough to hold the alley's reflection. Wobbly doors, a limp clothesline, my face thin and brighter than it feels. A single flip-flop lies near the Paz mural, abandoned mid-stride, mouth open to argue with the world. There's no foot in it, thank God. But the shape it left in the grime makes the same accusation. A door opens a crack, and an eye studies me, takes my measurements, decides I am the least relevant variable, and closes. A grandmother shapes a cross in the air with her forefinger. Not for me, for the block. A dog tries to bark and thinks better of it. Up the slope, the blue washes grow brighter, and the taps on metal grow less polite. Abrir, Policia. A man 3 doors up says nothing, but his silence has a wife and children. The soldiers lift the gate, find it locked, and the gate learns it was only ever a suggestion. The sound a pry bar makes is not loud, but it is absolute. We flatten against a wall whose damp has learned Mandarin, Arabic, every language sweat ever spoke. My heart does that horse kick thing against my ribs. Not romantic, just contractual. A round pops somewhere behind the doors. Warning, reflex, message, who knows? And the alley learns a new kind of quiet, the kind you wear like a stone on your tongue. A soldier swings his beam past our corner. His light catches the Paz con respeto, pauses as if to read it, and slides on. My knee chooses that exact moment to slip. I drop 6 inches and the beam flicks back. For a breath, it pins me like a rare moth. The soldier's face is an equation that equals training. My spine composes a short will. Then, merciful physics, the beam keeps moving. Somewhere above us, the helicopter decides to be interesting elsewhere. Relief detonates so loudly in my body, I'm sure it's audible. The man who yanked me earlier appears again like he was printed by the wall. We move. We become liquid, hugging corners, tasting concrete. The alley narrows to a sentence. Fragment, then opens onto a pocket of open air that smells like off-duty rain. A woman is there, standing straight, holding 2 fingers to her lips as if smoking a cigarette made of steadiness. Her kid clings to her calf, a barnacle with big eyes. She nods to me as if to say, "You're not dead. Keep it that way." A radio crackles overhead, call signs, grids, a plan that doesn't include our biographies. The blue tide pulls back down Rua 1, then surges forward again, testing the shore of each life. Doors open, hands show. Bags are set down gently on stoops, like small resignations. The inspection is quick, professional, not unkind, not kind either. A soldier pauses to let an old man steady himself on a bucket. The old man mutters thanks without lifting his eyes. It's not grace, but it is an arrangement. I press my back to the Paz wall and let its damp soak my shirt. My breath comes with the receipts. I think of the vendors in the market, how the grandmothers will be back at the domino table tomorrow, if the table still exists. How the boy with the sparkler will learn to light it again without flinching. How my collar-yanking stranger will sell whatever can be sold under whatever sky arrives. I think of this alley hosting 100 versions of the same night, and somehow building mornings anyway. Courage here is not a speech. It's a door opened a crack with the chain still on. It's a mother teaching her child, which kind of silence keeps you. It's a sandal, abandoned before the sprint, and not regretted later. It's a man who pulls an idiot like me behind a freezer because he can't tolerate one more preventable death in his line of sight. A final burst rattles the hill, far enough away to be called over there again. The blue fades to a memory of blue. Rua 1 exhales. A woman somewhere decides to laugh, just to prove to terror that it doesn't own the deed. It sounds like a pot lid clattering on a stove. Domestic, defiant, miraculous. I step out, legs watery, and the market's edge unspools in the near distance. Smoke lifting in thin, embarrassed threads. Oranges restacked as if a fruit has diplomacy. The TV finally dead, the caption surrendered. My shirt clings, my heartbeat eventually sends me a memo that the emergency meeting is adjourned. When the ear stops ringing, the thought returns, fully formed, impatient to be said. They called it peace on paper. In the margins, it bled. We start down again, me and the hill and the people who live at the speed of consequence. The night has reset its jaw. The word pacification keeps tasting like screws. Control, I realize as I pass the shoe and the painted promise, and the places where a child's sob has already evaporated, always arrives smiling. It saves the shouting for later. Chapter 3, The Blue Light Corridor. The hill keeps its secrets in layers, like a cake baked by a nervous god. Up top is where the voices live. Spider leg antennas, coax cables looping like rosaries, satellite dishes aimed at futures that might not arrive. I climb because the alley has lost its breath, and rooftops are where a city exhales. Stairs? Generous word. These are jitters poured in concrete. Each step, a different religion. A cat with one ear escorts me halfway, decides my chances are statistically unpromising, and vanishes through a gap in brick. Above, the sky has the color of wet aluminum. Helicopters buzz somewhere off stage, beyond the curtains of cloud, trying to remember whether they're angels or lawnmowers. The rooftop is a garden of metal. Tall antenna masts bristle in a tangle, bound to laundry poles and rebars with what I'm choosing to call industrial hope. Wires knot and kink, soldiering off into shadow. A plastic chair absently remembers a conversation. On the chair, a radio the size of a paperback, stickered with saints and soccer crests. Its antenna is telescoped out like a question that refuses to be short. The set hisses, coughs, then clears its throat like an ant who knows gossip and mercy in equal measure. Atenção, atenção, power cut, na linha C, portas batendo. Rua 2, Bope subindo de Oneia. Repito, de Oneia. The voice is low, half whisper, half litany, not panic, choreography. A second voice bleeds in from somewhere else, a woman counting, dois, tres, then gone. The radio makes a soft sound I've only heard in hospital oxygen lines and secret phone calls at 3 a.m. Truth, it turns out, speaks in the timbre of borrowed electricity. Below me, the hill shifts. Dogs hush. Doors unlatch. Someone slaps a metal shutter twice to send the old code down the slope. On another roof, two silhouettes bend together over a spool of cable, hands quick, heads down the way believers bow into prayer. The radio warms to its own courage. Não abre sem luz. Segura criança. Porta leve. Dioneia. Cuidado. Then it stops. Not a fade. A guillotine. Sentence cut mid-syllable, so the last vowel hangs in the air like a small ghost. The quiet is indecent. My ears ring with it. I can hear my pulse counting beans. I can hear the antenna wires hum like thin tuning forks beaten by weather. Somewhere close, boots stamp out a rhythm nobody asked for. A floodlight sweeps, paints the roofline with the color of interrogation, and keeps going. By the radio, 3 cables have been snipped and twisted together again with hurried tape. I reach for the cut end, the frayed copper whiskers, then stop short because I enjoy having a heartbeat. A tiny spark pecks at the tape and dies. Truth's off the air until further notice, I tell the wire, as if apology could restore current. A door slams below, and the roof hears a sob try to fold itself in half. I crouch, low as prudence, and the city flows around me. That wounded hush, that low electricity of waiting. The air tastes like wet metal and the ash of spent fireworks trying to pass for stars. I leave the rooftop with the kind of care you give a sleeping dog's dreams and drop back into the throat of the building, stairwell murky with detergent and rain. In the darkness, a hand touches my sleeve. A woman, sharp-chinned, barefooted, eyes quick as lifted birds. "Dianea?" she asks, making it both a question and a warning. "Vulvere," I say, and she snorts, which in every language means bad idea, but I respect the commitment. Rua Deonea receives me like a corridor in a submarine, narrow, echoing, full of recycled breath. The blue washes are stronger here, catching on every damp surface, turning doors into aquarium glass and faces into reef fish that prefer not to be cataloged. Floodlight pools overlap, then separate, then overlap again. A careful, luminous argument with darkness. They come in, formation, BOPE, shields interlocked, gleaming like fish scales stolen from a myth. Each step is a syllable. Each syllable rhymes with authority. Helmets turn as one, visors black, rifles pointed down, but ready. The grammar of a sentence that can add punctuation without warning. Between the shields, I see eyes. Not villains, not saviors. Men with a job that wears out language. The front rank moves like practiced weather. You can stand in it, you can move with it, or you can get flattened by the forecast. Neighbors watch from the margins of their own doorways. Hands show, hands withdraw. Someone coughs and regrets the biography of their lungs. A window above me opens a palm's width. 2 fingers appear, flicker, a signal I don't speak, and vanish. A teen presses himself into the shadow of a doorway, chin up, pretending he could be anywhere else, and almost succeeding. The unit pauses at a fork. Radios murmur in square syllables. A sergeant lifts his left hand. The line stills the way rivers freeze, slowly, and then all at once. In the brief stop, the night remembers its other job, beauty. Rain has beaded on every shield, a field of tiny moons. A clothesline stirs overhead, shirts translating blue into softer blues. A transistor on someone's hip whispers a stray bar of pagode before a gloved thumb disciplines it. Then a red blur arcs from a balcony like a thought that escaped the mouth it should have stayed inside. It's a flower, a gerbera, fat-petaled, carnival red. It lands by the boot of the point man, petals bruising in slow motion. The line does not move. The man does not move. The flower decides to be still. All of us, briefly, worship the physics of it. The gesture hangs like a truce no one signed. I'm close enough to see the soldier's eyes behind the visor. He glances down, the flicker of a man doing math you can't learn in school. He doesn't kick it away. He doesn't pick it up. He just allows it to exist in the same sentence as himself. In Rocinha, that qualifies as a paragraph. "Seguir," the sergeant says softly, and they do. The flower trembles in the backwash of their steps. A drop of rain climbs its stem and lets go, because even water prefers drama tonight. I edge along a wall, sweating out the last 3 storms. On my left, a mural I hadn't noticed, saints and footballers haloed in spray paint, each face retouched by time into either pity or practice. Someone has added a cartoon UPP cap to St. George's Dragon. It looks less threatened and more embarrassed. Dark humor, Sainthood edition. Ahead, Dianea narrows to a shimmer of light on wet stone, the corridor part of the myth. The unit advances into it, and every sound magnifies. Strap squeaks, a scuff, the staccato click of a radio mic. The floodlight behind them throws monstrous silhouettes forward, turning men into giants, stalking themselves. I slip into a doorway as the second line passes, and the door opens a crack behind me. No mix, someone whispers. Don't move. And I, a big fan of instruction during uprisings, oblige. We breathe together in the hinge's shadow, strangers united by shared respiration. The unit halts again, then parts like a zipper, opening around a checkpoint table, appearing from nowhere. Clipboard, pen, a portable lamp that makes everything look like theater. Names surface, addresses, a signature of compliance. A woman with a sleeping baby signs with her elbow because dignity requires two hands to hold. The pirate radio is still dead. The roof voices silenced, but a different frequency rises, pots tapping lids to signal clear. A broom dragged twice across concrete to mean not now. Someone whistling the first line of a funk tune that tonight pretends to be code. Communities write their own software when the power blinks. Toodle bim? A soft voice asks from the apartment behind me. The woman smells of soap and onions and endurance. A gente tá tentando, I whisper back. We're trying. She chuckles once, the surgical kind, removes exactly the dangerous part of a laugh, and leaves the rest for later. The unit closes ranks and moves past the checkpoint, deeper into the corridor, a gleaming spine threading the hill. Behind them, doors gain weight and close. Ahead of them, a tuck shop shutter rolls down and hums secrecy into the night. When the last shield slides by, the light becomes air again, and you realize you were starving for it. I step out. The flower is behind me now, red insisting on red. The puddles keep small moons intact for seconds at a time before the next boot or tire or hurried prayer breaks their mirrors. High above, the rooftop antennas stand in outlined silence, like tuning forks waiting for a hand that won't return tonight. The pirate radio will come back, of course. The hill has more frequencies than fear. But for now, the air belongs to the ones who rented it with guns. I move on with the corridor. A quiet ghost in borrowed. Blue. Order, I'm learning, isn't loud. It's meticulous. It prefers rehearsals to performances. It choreographs silence and waits for the applause that fear provides. I touch the damp wall, feel the city's pulse traveling through it. Thin, fast, stubborn, and let the thought shape itself. Order is just silence rehearsing for applause. Chapter 4. Prayers between gunfire. The path to the church is a staircase that seems personally offended by knees. Each riser is a different height. Urban jazz and concrete. Someone has spray-painted arrows on the wall, not for piety, but for escape routes. They point both up and down, which feels theologically honest. A stray firework casing crunches under my boot, like a tiny retired cannon. Overhead, a sliver of morning makes a polite attempt at dawn, and then reconsiders. The hill smells of damp cement, old incense, and the cheap bravado of burnt powder. The church, half finished, half remembered, sits like a skeleton of faith, ribs of rebar poking from gray flesh. One wall's rendered smooth, as if God got this far on Sunday and the crew never came back Monday. Pigeons have signed a lease in the rafters, 2 candles gutter, near what will someday be an altar, if budgets and bullets ever agree to a ceasefire. A tarp flaps where a stained glass window should be, stained only by weather and ambition. Inside, I find the house of hidden eyes. Along the north wall, in a line exactly shoulder high to a nervous lookout, are drilled peepholes, neat, ruthless circles, each backed by a scrap of bottle glass or a coin of cracked mirror. Traffickers once used this place as a watchtower. Sanctuary turned periscope. The irony is so on the nose it needs a tissue. I'll lean to one peephole. The world reduces to a trembling coin of light. Through it, a courtyard crushed in shadow. Families kneeling on folded jackets, mouths moving in that disciplined choreography of prayer. Above them, a mural of the Virgin carries a constellation of bullet scars like cheap jewelry. The paint has been touched up so many times she looks both younger and more tired, like every mother here. A priest's voice comes thin through a speaker with a cough in it. Paz não é a ausência de armas, he says, mas a ausência de fome. Peace is not the absence of guns, but of hunger. The speaker crackles, as if even electricity is trying not to cry. Outside the open side door, a soldier on perimeter duty pauses, eyes closed, fingers working the rosary in his pocket. He crosses himself before reloading, and I'm not sure which oath he believes will work faster. His partner mutters Amen without derision and nods toward the church, permission granted by men who never get any. The prayer rolls on. Names are offered like receipts. A woman lifts a toddler who sleeps by decree rather than choice, head heavy on her shoulder, mouth open in protest intermission. A teenager in a football jersey stares hard at the floor as if reading instructions invisibly printed there. How to aim your future. How to make it daylight. A BOPE truck growls somewhere down the slope. Heads flinch in synchrony. The priest doesn't stop, doesn't even pause. The candles gutter again, reconsider their career, and gamely continue. I press my eye to another hole, different angle, same insistence. Faith here doesn't stand up straight. It crouches and still refuses to leave. Behind me, a bench has been converted into triage. A bundle of gauze, a bottle of something clear that claims to be medicinal, a stack of paper cups. Someone has written agua benta on a jug in marker. The question mark is both joke and theology. Another staccato down the alley. 3 shots, disciplined and unambiguous. The prayer falters a beat, then lands on the next word together, like a choir that refuses to miss its cue. I glance through the hole again. The mother's lips move faster, not louder. The boy in the jersey crosses himself the way you might sign for a package you're not sure you ordered. I step back from the wall. The peepholes stare at me like an old accusation. My throat tastes of gypsum and iron. Outside, the soldier with the rosary looks up. We make eye contact, a brief, embarrassed acknowledgement that none of this is in the manual. He tips his chin as if to say, keep moving. I answer with the international gesture for I know, which is a small shrug that pretends to be a plan. The path down from the church, switchbacks into a courtyard that used to throb like a second heart. The funk dance courtyard, floor tiled with scuffs and pride. Tonight is a stage with the sound cut. The speakers are muzzled by damp blankets. A banner that once shouted, Bail Funk, now hangs limp. Letters like exhausted horses. A lone string of bulbs drapes between 2 poles, half of them dead, the other half flickering, like drunk fireflies practicing a waltz. Rocinha has always had 2 religions, faith and funk. Both gather the body. Both demand you survive the night. Now the music is banned, which is a cute word for we're afraid of what joy can organize. Still, the courtyard breathes. A woman sells coffee in paper thimbles. Jet fuel for nerves. Smoke from a pile of burned trash wanders the air like confused incense. It threads through the graffiti that rings the space. Rocinha resiste in block letters. A cartoon of a BOPE skull wearing headphones. A haloed sneaker with wings and a caption that reads, Deus e DJ. Somebody's sense of humor refuses to surrender its passport. A bucket sits against a wall, plastic cracked, handle gone to memory. A boy, 8, 10, ageless when measured in sirens, taps it with 2 short dowels. Not a beat the law could complain about, just enough rhythm to remind the air what it's for. His face is an instrument too. Eyes half closed, mouth set, head tilted in a pact with time. No para musica, a woman in a hair bonnet says from her stoop, the words carrying the tone of a rule she's tired of repeating. The boy doesn't stop. He looks at me, at the mural, at the steam leaving the coffee, and answers without looking up. Música não precisa de permissão. Music doesn't need permission. Nem coragem, I say. He nods once, promotion received, and changes the pattern, drumming a coded conversation onto the bucket skin. In the far corner, A pair of teenagers answer with sneaker scrapes, a shuffle that hints at a dance, even if the dance refuses to come out from under the bed. Someone whistles half a hook, the way you whistle for a dog that moved away last week. There's laughter, the furtive kind, as if mirth needs faked ID. A girl braids another girl's hair with fingers that know both knot and not undoing. A man in a flamingo jersey practices not smoking by holding a cigarette and forgetting to light it. Everybody here is defiance spelled out in muscle memory. A BOPE unit ghosts past the courtyard mouth. 2 shields, 4 helmets, rifles held like stern warnings. They don't enter. This is a public living room, and the furniture is all nailed down by stubbornness. One soldier turns his head when the boy's sticks click into a syncopation that used to shake the hill. He pauses. Something not unkind passes through the visor. Then he moves on, footsteps folding into the night's general grammar. Antigamente, an old man says beside me. O chão tremia. Back then the floor trembled. Vai tremer de novo, the coffee seller says, pouring another shot like she's dealing tarot. Se Deus quiser, e se a luz voltar. If God wills, and if the power returns. Priorities, ranked. From somewhere deep in the maze, a distant bass line tries to live. It's faint as a rumor, and twice as brave. The courtyard goes very still, as if listening can protect it. The sound stumbles, catches, finds one clean measure, then dies as if a hand swatted it from the air. The silence that follows is not empty. It's a collective decision not to cry in front of strangers. I look up. The church's concrete ribs notch the skyline, a gray metronome against bruised blue cloud. Between faith and funk, this hill has invented more ways to keep a soul inside its body than any textbook will ever bother to list. My mouth goes on, autopilot to rescue my heart. When they banned music, I say, they forgot the city is percussion. Roofs, buckets, door frames, ribs. If it echoes, it plays. The boy grins without smiling and rolls into another beat. Faster now, mischievous, almost joyful. The bucket answers like a drum that knows karate. A broom hits the tile in time. 2 spoons declare themselves symbols. The courtyard obeys no ordinance but rhythm. For 20 seconds, maybe 30, we are a band called Survival, and our lead singer is a pulse. A sharp crack from the alley. 1 shot, just the one. The music shuts itself off like a guilty TV. Heads swivel. The coffee seller doesn't spill. The teenagers don't run. They simply become wall texture. The priest's voice, riding a sliver of wind from the church, brushes the courtyard like a benediction that took the long way around. I stand there and feel the tug of war braided through this night. Prayer on one rope, beat on the other, and people in the middle refusing to let go of either. Sacred exhaustion, humor as rebellion. It's not pretty, except it is. It's not safe, except it saves. On a wall by the exit, someone has written in chalk, Sem fe, sem funk, sem futuro. Without faith, without funk, no future. I touch the words and leave a clean fingerprint in dust. Faith and funk, I tell the dark. The twin religions of survival. The dark considers this and, in a rare show of agreement, doesn't object. We move again. Quiet tide, small steps. Somewhere above, a helicopter clears its throat. Somewhere below, a baby laughs in its sleep, like someone telling a joke to tomorrow. I take that laugh and stick it in my pocket with the coffee steam and the priest's line about hunger, a small reliquary clinking as I walk. The hill hums, and I hum back. Chapter 5, The Hidden Arteries of Fear. The entrance is not a door so much as a shrug in the hillside, a corrugated panel nudged open by someone who knows where hinges should have been. My guide, skinny, sleepless, wearing a t-shirt that says, So Feliz, like a dare, tilts his chin. Sim loose, he says. No light. He means no electricity. The candles say otherwise. We drop into the throat of concrete. The air is thick with damp and old cigarettes, a mineral cold that remembers every boot step, It's swallowed. Candles hunker in niches at shoulder height, each guttering flame, a tiny confession. Wax climbs the walls in pale stalactites, frozen tears on rough cement. Between the candles, graffiti in layers, names scratched with nail or knife, dates that read like headstones, a prayer that repeats every few meters in different hands. Protege Amun, protect the mother. Maybe the hillside is the mother, maybe someone else, maybe all of it. Water ticks somewhere ahead, a metronome. For people who can't afford pianos, the tunnel curves, and the sound goes from left ear to right, like something alive changing lanes. My guide walks heel to toe, a street acrobat performing for the darkness. He points with his mouth the way locals do, lips pursed, chin dip. I duck under a vein of rebar that decided to become a chandelier. The ceiling sweats. My breath becomes a white rumor I don't want to start. From deep in the black, a hummed melody floats toward us. Thin, stubborn, dirt sweet. Asa Branca, a northeastern lullaby, carried 1,000 kilometers on someone's ribs and released here where the city keeps its panic. The voice never rises, never falters. It threads through the candles like a shy procession. I can't see the singer. The tunnel edits people down to sound in silhouette. All I get is the tune, a ghost with calluses, insisting dry lands can bloom if you keep the note steady. I tell till. The voice trails into breath, starts again, softer. We pass the hum as you pass a shrine, eyes lowered, gratitude quietly folded. Even ghosts need a soundtrack, I whisper. My guide doesn't smile exactly. His face accepts the line and files it under later. He taps the wall twice with his knuckle. A code, a comfort, the concrete answers with a dull, polite thud. We move through a junction where another tunnel mouths open. A draft slides past, cold as old envy. A chalk arrow on the floor points towards Saida. Under it, someone added, CDR, if it works. Honesty in 2 words. We pass a painted inventory of fear. Silhouettes of rifles, sketched quickly in charcoal, each labeled with a nickname. Not for worship, for warning. Non por aquí, someone wrote beneath them. Not this way. The candle under that message burns lower than the rest, as if exhaustion learned to glow. Closer to the exit, the tunnel narrows and the sound of the city sneaks in. Muffled engines, a dog doing its best impersonation of a siren, the distant gossip of rain on metal roofs. The candles thin out until we're walking on faith's aftertaste. The guide stops, listens, then touches my sleeve and points his mouth upward. We climb a short flight of slick steps into a rectangle of daylight, the color of old teeth. We emerge beside a wall tattooed with schedules, arrows for distribution times, names tied to hours, a chessboard of survival logistics. Above it, a poster flaps where the glue gave up. Pacification, in friendly fonts, a cop smiling like he'd just discovered empathy. Wind toys with the edge of the poster and reveals another layer beneath. A school flyer, edges scorched. Aula de Reforzo, remedial lessons. The date is last week and a lifetime ago. The Escola de Rua sits half-shadowed by a mango tree that refuses to stop being generous. Its gate is painted the optimistic blue of fresh idea. The padlock dangles broken, like a promise with a hinge problem. And there, by the entrance, under a sheet that fails at neutrality, the body nobody claims. People step around it with the care you give a sleeping child. Quiet feet, no sudden decisions. A woman carrying a sack of bread heals her path a little wider. A boy pulls his dog close, as if grief is contagious by leash. There is no blood, only the stubbornness of the sheet's outline. Someone has placed a plastic flower near the head, red trying to be permanent. A note lies beneath a stone. Deus conoce seu nome. God knows your name. I stand useless a beat too long, then bow my head as if I remember how to pray. The mango tree knocks 3 slow fruits against each other in the wind. A wooden metronome for the living. Inside, the classroom hums with the kind of chaos that insists it's order. Teachers, tired, monastic in cheap polo shirts, wipe soot from textbooks with cloths that used to be T-shirts. A fan stares from the ceiling like a broken halo. One woman has turned a cupboard into triage. Pencils, erasers, bandages, biscuits. All labeled. The biscuits are labeled twice. On the blackboard, chalk crumbles into sincerity. Citadania. O que es livre? Citizenship. What does it mean to be free? Half erased, as if the answer got interrupted by the door. I run a fingertip through the chalk dust and leave a bright line like a tiny runway. A question still waiting for grading. I exhale. The teacher nearest me hears and snorts. Affirmation with a side of fatigue. Hoj, she says, a prova e pratica. Today, the test is practical. In the back row, a boy copies from a salvaged page of civics, his letters careful enough to make saints jealous. A girl next to him shares a stub of pencil, breaking it clean in half with surgeon focus. When the tip snaps and skitters, both children freeze, eyes darting to the door on reflex. No one comes. They breathe out at the same time, twin bellows returning to work. On a side table, a cardboard box full of confiscated chalk, each stick tagged with a child's name. I pick one up and read Talita in shaky script. The teacher takes it gently from my hand and sets it back. Prova de vida, she says. Proof of life. Roll call for hope. From outside, a small commotion swells, then softens, the crowd adjusting its orbit around the sheet. A man in a fluorescent vest, city worker, volunteer, holy fool, steps in, caps his head, and asks the room, Kim sabe ele? Who knows him? No one answers. Or everyone answers by staying quiet. He nods, takes a form from his pocket, writes a number in the corner. Bureaucracy's tenderness, documenting the nameless so the forgetting has to work harder. The teacher resumes her wiping. On another board, a list of words blooms in chalk. Derecho, dever, dignidad, rights, duties, dignity. A child's hand, small and insistent, reaches up to add agua under them, water. The room corrects its priorities without debate. A gust pushes through the open windows and raises a constellation of chalk dust. For a heartbeat, the air is full of tiny white stars. Every face catches a halo that vanishes when they inhale. Knowledge going where it belongs. My guide taps his watchless wrist. Time to go is a concept everyone here understands without accessories. We walk back toward the door and the impossible math beyond it. I glance one last time at the question on the board. The chalk line I drew has already been smudged by a child's sleeve into a soft, uncertain arc. It looks more honest that way. At the threshold, a girl posts a new hand-drawn sign with masking tape salvaged from a braver era. Ola Hohe, Citadania. Tarefa, Continuar. Class today, citizenship. Homework, continue. Outside, the mango tree drops a heavy fruit with a comic thud that startles 3 people into laughter they didn't know they had left. Someone picks it up, divides it with a pocket knife as solemn as a sacrament, and passes the yellow crescents down the line. The body remains, the cue parts, and life, disrespectful, miraculous. Choose. We step back into the tunnel's shadow, cast along the wall, a reminder that underneath every street is a second city learning to breathe without being seen. Behind us, a child's voice begins to spell out words from the board, each syllable a match struck in a storeroom. Cidadania. The class repeats, soft but unanimous. Some truths don't vanish. They just hide under dust and lesson plans. You wipe, they return. You erase, they persist. You confiscate the chalk. And a new hand writes with a mango seed on a wall outside. We turn downhill. The tunnel mouth waits like a patient secret. The candles, small, stubborn constellations, shiver in our slipstream and hold. The hum of our Asa Branca follows. Quieter now, changing keys around a sorrow it refuses to surrender to. Vamos, my guide says. We go. Chapter 6. The Dawn Over Blue Shadows. Rua de Labrio climbs like a question the city refuses to answer, a rib of concrete pressed against the sky. I take it in quiet strides, lungs bargaining with the hill, calves offering small apologies to anatomy. Rocinha huddles beneath, a galaxy of windows blinking insomnia and blues and sodium golds. Somewhere a rooster is auditioning for artillery. Somewhere else, a pressure cooker insists on optimism. Then the lights die. It's not a flicker. It's a velvet curtain dropping in one breath. Television swallowed mid-sentence. Fridges sighing into confession. 1,000 chargers suddenly remembering mortality. The slab of moonlight is all that's left, poured over roofs like milk. For a second, the entire favela inhales the same gasp. You can hear the silence notice itself. She starts alone. An old woman's voice rises from a veranda. A reed thin line turned steel by use. O canto das tres raças. The song of the three races. It floats uphill, a thread stitching together doors and alleys and people who pretend they don't listen as hard as they do. Another voice joins, then another. Men, women, the brave, the tired, until the whole hillside hums like a heart plugged straight into history. O Negro Ontu, the black voice. O Indio Antu, the indigenous voice. O Branco Ontu, the white voice. All the griefs, layered, all the stubborn joys, stacked permissionless. Helicopters thrum overhead, trying to be important. The song refuses to notice. The blue shadows thicken. The street becomes a river without water, carrying a current made of breath. I press my palm to the wall and feel the vibration travel through plaster and pipe. Darkness forgot Rocinha rehearsed for this moment, I whisper, and my own voice feels like an intruder in a room where the grown-ups are speaking. A spark cracks somewhere below. Then another. Not gunfire. A candle catching. 1, 2, 20 windows. Sprout flames like fireflies with a union. Tiny lighthouses appointing themselves. The power cut had tried to quiet the hill. The hill replied by becoming sky. The blackout holds its nerve for 27 minutes and a lifetime. When the power stumbles back, it returns sheepishly. A few bulbs, a smug refrigerator, a TV that coughs itself awake into static. The singing doesn't stop. It thins. It shifts key. It folds into murmurs. But it doesn't stop. Some songs aren't on the grid. I keep climbing. At the ridge, the night is fresher. The air less convinced of motorcycles. The concrete narrows to shoulder width, with a shrug, and then widens again, an uneven spine thrown across the slope. Far below, Rua 1 and Dionea look painted, bluish, just this side of Rio, as if the city was testing a filter. A BOPE truck idles in miniature. Men in black shift like punctuation marks. On the opposite ridge, a lone TV explodes back into a soap opera and gets shooshed by 3 buildings at once. The firefight begins like a rumor that heard itself and got excited. 2 staccato bursts. Surgical, professional, not here to chat. Replies from deeper in the maze, less disciplined, more insult than strategy. The hill flinches in disagreements of light. My body chooses humility and folds behind a parapet that only partially believes in masonry. You'd be amazed how much prayer the average cinder block can absorb. Below me, a metal door jumps under someone's fists. A mother pulls the child's head tight under her chin, fingers splayed like a helmet God forgot to issue. On a roof to my right, a man in a tank top spreads himself over a water tank, protecting the only thing in this neighborhood with a longer memory than gossip. He looks like a mural of a saint no one would officially canonize. Rounds chatter, a wind made of brass. A bottle shatters, a dog declares neutrality. The helicopters hiccup their own punctuation and drift. Lamps dragging cones of harsh, indecisive daylight across bricks. For a breath, the beams pin a red flower on a stair. Someone's gesture from earlier, still refusing to wilt. The light moves. The flower keeps being red. I slide along the ridge's rib, slow as thought. When the shooting drops into the low growl of reloads, Rocinha exhales a syllable it's been saving. You can hear spatulas against pans again. Even danger gets tired of its own voice. By the time I reach the overlook, Mist has begun to leak from the forest, like breath from a sleeping animal. Helicopters hover at the boundary between steel and cloud, awkward gods who forgot the words to the prayer. The first bruise of light lifts behind Pedro de Gavia, pink reluctantly admitting it might be day. Shadows fall back toward their owners. The damage is shy until dawn touches it. Then it confesses. A roof pocked with holes like an ugly constellation, a wall chewed into modern art, a set of spent casings glinting in the gutter like gold. The city decided not to. Mine. Faces emerge, soot-streaked, wet-eyed, expression cheap, but not broken. The particular fatigue of people who survived again. Survival is a skill set here. They should offer certificates. I leaned my forearms on the overlooks wall and let my breath match the hillsides. Long in, longer out. Below, a transistor radio finds its signal the way a drunk finds a chair. Noisy, determined, successful on the second try. The announcer's voice is manufactured calm. A comunidade foi pacificada. The hill has been pacified. The crowd below laughs. Not cruelly, knowingly. The sound rolls uphill like warm weather. Someone says, pacificada, aonde? Pacified where exactly? A woman in pink house slippers raises an eyebrow with so much elegance, the sunrise takes notes. From farther down, a boy darts into view, barefoot, holding a broom like a spear. He begins sweeping shell casings into a neat pile, expression grave as a surgeon prepping an OR. A grandmother hands him a dustpan and hands, kisses the top of his head without breaking eye contact with the city. This is how wars actually end. In brooms, the helicopters wheel away, bored of not being the main character. Birds remember their job and enter stage left. A moto-taxi coughs itself back into society and carries 3 souls on one seat, as if balance were a political statement. On a balcony, someone makes coffee, the smell ambitious and forgiving, and passes a tiny cup to a neighbor through a gap in the wall, the way water passes through stone, given enough years. Maybe peace isn't what arrives when the shooting stops, I murmur. Maybe it's what survives it. The sun climbs a knuckle higher. Light gilds everything with the same unreasonable grace. The broken and the defiant, the careful and the careless. Blue lingers in the seams, a last cool hush before the heat signs its contract. For a beat, the entire favela looks like stained glass laid flat. Fragments, yes, but together they invent a window. The radio, suddenly informal, slides into a samba older than today's certainty. A woman below me begins to sing along while wringing out a shirt. Each twist of fabric flings diamonds of water into the already bright morning. They fall, they vanish. They meant everything for the second they existed. That's not a bad metaphor for courage. I watch a man climb a ladder to rehung a wire he absolutely does not have a permit for. He whistles at the sun, which has never demanded paperwork. Children chase a stray kite across 2 rooftops and a lifetime. The kite snags, a boy scales. The morning forgives the trespass because it prefers stories with good endings. The loudspeaker on a patrol car clears its throat and announces another rule. The hill listens with the politeness reserved for uncles and utility bills. A cat threads itself through the ankles of 3 strangers and becomes family by sheer persistence. The city never stops. It just keeps rearranging its hunger. The rich dream in towers. The poor dream in pieces. But tonight, Rocinha dreams in blue, and the dream sounds suspiciously like freedom. The sun finally snaps the mist like a ribbon at an opening ceremony no dignitaries bothered to attend. Applause comes in the form of frying eggs, clanking laundry, and 1,000 doors opening at once. I tap the wall twice, a quiet benediction for brick and breath, and step back from the overlook. My shadow folds into the hillside's larger one, and for a second, we are the same size. Rest easy, sleepyheads. The path through time never closes. It just waits. I'll see you back in the circle.